Bob, y'all ready? You ready? Renee, you good? $7 o'clock, Mr. Mayor.
They said no to that.
I will call the March 6th meeting of Irmo County Council to order, and I will lead us in the pledge of allegiance and invocation.
Cannot hear you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, we ask you to be with us here tonight. Guide us, give us wisdom, Lord. Help us, Lord, to do the town's business in a way that pleases you, in a way that pleases our citizens, Lord. We just ask for your blessing in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Nope. Nope. Next thing on the agenda is the minutes from February the 20th, 2018. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
And a second.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor then of those minutes being approved as written, do so with show of hand. And the next is for the minutes for February 22nd, 2018. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh,
What was the minutes from that?
on the 22nd.
Where's it?
Under page,
Any discussion? Oh.
Where's the minutes for that? I don't see
under
it.
pages,
Maybe I'm missing it. I don't see it on here.
Are they on there, Bob?
22nd?
you want to read mine?
I mean, it should be on pages, right?
It is, yes, right after.
I don't have it.
You was there Friday.
Show me where.
Oh, man, you're asking the wrong guy here. Let's see. Yeah, that's him right there.
Oh, okay.
It's got to upload now. Download, upload, side load, whatever.
That what it's
okay.
doing? Oh, man. I did something with a computer.
All right, got it.
Any discussion on those? All in favor then of those being approved as written, do so with show of hands. And the next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you want to add?
Yes, sir. Richland County came out this morning and conducted an inspection over at Cornerstone, created a small punch list, and the contractor believes he can get it all done in a week to 10 days. And Richland County will take it.
Was the punch list simple stuff or major stuff or just?
All minor.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? I do want to ask one question. It's not on the briefing, I don't know, but the landlord ordinance, will we have that for next meeting?
We'll have it for the next meeting.
Okay.
I just talked to Mr. Hale, and he's working on it.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Seeing none, next is the code enforcement report.
Mayor, council, hope y'all are doing well. Check. Okay. This is the code enforcement update. For front yard parking, the ordinance is 1726. This is that was the 28th, 2018 one. There was an updated one. Did you guys get that one that was for today?
I think that's what's on the
3/6/2018
computer. It looks different.
At 2 o'clock.
Or, yeah, okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. As of today at 2 o'clock, I met with Sergeant Dale, Code Enforcement. The number that you see up there right now, total number of properties that have been identified for the ordinance of 1726 is 282. 282 properties within the town limits of Irmo have been identified as parking in their front yard, not a rental. So within the violation of the ordinance, if it were to pass, or when it passes in August. Of that total number of 282, the total number that have been notified by posting the information only with no face-to-face is 165. Out of that total number, the next one you see is 117 that have been face-to-face. They have been in contact with Code Enforcement. They've had questions asked about the ordinance to Code Enforcement, and Code Enforcement was able to answer their questions. So that's 117 out of the 282 that had face-to-face. The next question on there is how many follow-up contacts with the posted notifications that citizens made to us? In other words, after we posted the information, how many citizens have called us about the ordinance? Sergeant Dale has advised approximately around 25. Of the 25, some of them have been sent to the town administrator for follow-up. Other ones have been answered by Code Enforcement. The last page, or the last question is how many follow-up contacts with citizens have we made that were face-to-face or by phone or by email? And it's been, he says, between 5 and 10. Looking at it with him, it's more around 10. So basically, after we have made a post, after we posted the information, spent about around 10 contacts that we went back, and I said, explain why is it 10, what's going on? He said, well, how they've been doing it is they would go in the community when they see a front yard parking situation. It's not just identify and keep moving, it's identify and get out of the car. So of the 282 you see, that is actually identification and part of education. The education portion of either posting or getting a face-to-face contact. So he says when they're driving through the neighborhood and they're looking or trying to identify and educate the people in this the town of the ordinance, they may see, example, Mr. A standing out on the street, and he knows he's posted at that property, so he may stop and say, did you get the posting that we posted? And they may say, yeah, I got it. Okay, just want to make sure that I'm following back up with you. I saw you standing on the street. I wanted to make sure that you got that. So I asked him a few more questions that I thought was pretty interesting. I said, out of the 282, break the numbers down for me for neighborhoods. So today we sat there. Of the 282, New Friars Gate is 184 of the 282. The next one is Old Friars Gate. There's 56 that were identified. The next one out of that's Fox Run, 18. Coatesworth, 16. Park Place, 4. And Beacon Hill, 1. All right. Of course, New Friars Gate's our biggest subdivision. Of course, there's going to be a lot more of those in that neighborhood. So if you need me to read those numbers again, I can do that.
Do it again, please.
Yes, sir. New Friars Gate was 184. Old Friars Gate, 56. Fox Run, 18. Coatesworth, 16. Park Place, 4. And Beacon Hill, 1. I asked him several other questions that I thought might be interesting for me to know, and after explaining it, I think it's interesting as well. So I asked him, where are you in this ordinance? How many more do you think are out there? He said they're in the identify/education portion right now, where they're going to identify and they're educating. They're going to try to switch back over now to the education/identifying. So they've identified 282. They're now going to go out and educate all 282 face-to-face. That's what they want to do. As they're going out to identify and educate the 282, which they already did 117. So they're going to go start making contact with these 282. As they're doing that, and they come across a car in a yard, they're going to look to make sure that they hadn't already been out there. If they have, they're going to get out, identify, and start the education process. I asked him, code enforcement, I asked pretty much all of them, how many do you think are left riding around? And they don't really know a number, but they're thinking maybe 80, 70, 80 more that may be in violation. I think when we are part of the ordinance, I think we initially started this, I thought numbers were about 150 is what we were thinking. As you clearly see, it's 282. So we may be we're double to what we thought it was going to be. And I don't think everyone's been identified for the ordinance. So it's still an ongoing process. I think they've done a great job to where they're at right now. With the standing orders that we had, going out, identifying, and then start educating. They're now going out, they're going to start educating and identifying. More education part now than identifying, but if they see it, they're going to get out with it and deal with it accordingly. When asked about, initially I said, your standing orders will go out and identify. He said, yeah, but when you go out to a house, when you see it, we want to deal with it immediately. We don't want to just ride by and write down 123 Main Street as a problem. 126 is a Main Street is a problem. That house is a problem. This house is a problem. We'll go back and later and identify it or educate. The code enforcement all felt that they wanted to get out with it at that time. So they can say, your blue car with tag number 123 ABC in your front yard is going to be part of is going to be a violation of the ordinance. So they wanted to educate while the activity was occurring. They didn't want to go by, hey, we got this, and go back 2 weeks later and say, there was a car in your yard that we saw, and it was in violation of an ordinance that we got coming up. And they go, what car are you talking about? Because it's clearly not here now. And, y'all, what are y'all talking about? So they wanted to have the problem on scene, deal with it, talk about it, and find out what the deal is with the car. I thought it was pretty smart. So with all that being said, that's where we're at right now. So they are going to switch over to getting hold of the 165 that have just been posted and not face-to-face. So they want to go out and educate those 165, but also identifying as we go. Clearly, it's not just New Friars Gate that they got to go out and look at. I asked about several other neighborhoods. I asked about Quail Valley. It was 0. Murraywood, 0. Hidden Oaks, 0. Cornerstone, 0. Garden Brook, 0. Hill Creek, 0. That was in the computer that they have not found anybody parking in their front yard in those particular neighborhoods. Now, I'm not saying there ain't nobody right now parked in their front yard in those neighborhoods, but clearly they've been to other places besides New Friars Gate. So it's a I don't know how many houses we have in town limits of Irmo. I don't even know.
4,700 roughly, Bob, is that right? 49.
So 5,000. And we've located 282 with the problem. So, they're still looking and they're still trying to educate. But I think they're on the right path of how they're dealing with that situation. And I'm glad their numbers are up. And this has been their top priority the past couple of weeks. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
That 4,900 is in Friars Gate?
No, that's all of town.
All of town?
Yeah,
4880 something is what it actually is.
In the entire town?
I wasn't sure. I didn't know how many numbers.
That's fine.
About 5,000.
Out of that 282, how many of those rental houses?
None of them should be rentals because the rental, if you park in your front yard and with a rental house, you can't do that. You're already in violation of the ordinance.
Yeah, so how many of that 282 were rentals?
0.
0?
0.
None of those 282 that they identified were rental properties. Because
I can make a phone call and let you know at the end if you want me to do that, but those should be just dealing with this ordinance 26, 26, sorry.
Something like that.
I guess what I want to know, how do they know when they drive up to a house, they see a car in the driveway, how do they know that's an owner and not a rental house?
The rental properties should be listed at the town.
Right, but how does a patrol officer, how does a code enforcement officer know that when he pulls up?
Well, we can ask Vi. They could ask Vi if that was a rental home If it's listed as a rental home, they can.
So
go to
is that
tax
part of the
map.
process they do? They pull up and
They do the tax map a lot. They'll go in
No,
and
I'm saying
see.
when they pull up and they see a car in the driveway, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna call Vi at Town Hall right there and say, is this a rental house?"
They do that. They also
Okay.
check the list with Vi. They also check the tax map to see if they're paying a 6% or a 4%.
Right, but they
so they do a
identify
little-
that they identify this is a rental property.
Yeah, and then
not
they also try to get a face-to-face in. Of the 282 that are rentals, Mr. Walker, Councilman Walker, I don't know if one or two or three could be. I don't want to say that they're not all.
Well, you just said none.
I know I did,
Okay.
but I don't want. Let me rephrase.
Okay.
They should all be part of this ordinance 1726.
Okay.
And one thing too, and you don't, but if the officer's telling them, we're gonna write you a ticket, and they say, well, I don't own this home, I rent it, then you could turn around and go, well, you're in violation right away,
Violation of
cause
rental ordinance,
blah,
yeah,
blah,
and
blah.
they deal with that
Well,
accordingly.
they can't park in the yard at all, so to speak, but
Yeah. When asked about the ordinance 282 is what I was given for the 1726 from our code enforcement. So I just got to say that I think 282 is the correct number for this particular ordinance.
Well, I believe it's 282, but I'm just not clear about how many of that 282 are rental houses. Because when I rode around with your officer, we pulled up to a house. It had cars parked in the yard, and we knocked on the door, and she said, "Oh, I don't own this house. I rent." "Oh, you can't park here anyway." So
Right.
there you go.
So they dealt with that accordingly.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to write down your question.
Well, it matters, but the ticket goes to the car, right?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
It matters.
If it's rental,
Yeah.
but the ticket still goes to the car.
Yeah, I think they're dealing with the vehicle itself, who owns the vehicle, and why the vehicle is there. Those are some of the questions that they're asking. How many of the 282 were rentals? I'll find that out for you and get it to you tomorrow.
So who's the ticket go to now?
The
Owner
car.
of the vehicle.
Yep.
We have an ordinance that says you can't park your vehicle on anyone's property knowing it's against the law. And of course, ignorance of the law excuses no man, then you're guilty of violating the law.
Is there any other questions I can ask Sergeant
Yes.
Dale and
Oh.
get back to him?
Yes, please.
Yep.
How many days have you been at this now?
We've been at this from January 17 till now. January 17th, I actually asked him, January 17th, how many active code enforcement cases were y'all still investigating when we got this ordinance passed? It was 15. So on top of the 35 that they did from January 17 to January 31, which is the last time y'all got an update was 35, they still had 15 active cases. So that particular, from January 17 to January 31, they did about 50 complaints in that 2 weeks.
And what hours and days are they working?
They are working, Sergeant Dale works Monday through Friday, and the other two code enforcement officers, they work 9 to 9, Monday through Saturday. They overlap on Wednesday for court, so all three will be working Wednesday tomorrow. They overlap for court proceedings. The Sergeant Dale does Victims Advocate Services as well. So
When they're out there working, talking about this ordinance, I would imagine most of the time between 6 and 9 is their most
I would think so.
fruitful time.
I would think so, yeah. I could ask what their most fruitful time would be for this ordinance if you'd like
And,
to know.
and does anyone go out, let's say, at 11 o'clock during patrols and just identify those people that they're done for the night, so you're going to get a better sense of whether or not they're parking on the lawns at 11 o'clock than you would at 9.
You talking about for patrol
And you would at
purposes?
7.
You mean having the patrol guys go out and do that?
I know. I'm saying perhaps what you should be doing is changing one or two of the code enforcement officers to make sure that we're going to hit every house and have a face-to-face by the time August comes around. I would like this thing put to bed at the end of April. Do you think that's possible?
That's very possible. to work another hour or two, come in at 11, work till 11.
That's what I'm saying. And just another question. Councilman Wakes, you had a list of rental properties, right? Where did you get that list?
I got it from Vi.
From Vi.
She emailed it to me.
Why don't each code enforcement officer have that list that they can refer to right in their vehicle?
And I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that they do call Vi if they think it might be a rental property, or they have a list. You want to find out they have a list in their car of rental
and
properties.
I'd like to know if that list is on their computers.
The list that she has is, I mean, if it was on a piece, if it was on a 11,
Yeah,
it would be probably that long.
sure, but there's a lot of,
and that's just on, say, maybe 15 houses.
yeah, what they're
'Cause
doing
I
is,
used up 3 print cartridges printing this because some of it was in color where they highlight bedrooms, mortgage holders, et cetera, et cetera.
do we know if that's an Excel file?
I'm
we
not
know?
sure. I don't know. I'm not sure how Town Hall does it.
Probably is. So a lot of that information actually can be hidden so that that column could be shrunk up, and they would have access to that full list where it would be easily read. I would like to see that happen, to make sure it's on their computer when they're patrolling, so it could easily, you can go a Control F and put in the address, and it should pop up what it is.
It won't be on their computer.
Our servers are different. We're disconnected from Town Hall. If somebody were to hack Town Hall, they couldn't hack the police department. If someone hacked the police department, they couldn't hack Town Hall. We got some different servers. We have secure files at our police department. We handle
They could
a
have
lot of
it,
security.
Somebody would have to enter it all.
Or
You can email it to them, and then they can put it on their server and get access.
On their server, but I understand it won't go in their car. That's what I'm saying. Compatibility with their software on their laptop, not compatible with the server. Server talks to our server.
Don't you just have to put Excel on their computer and it'll
On their server, not their computers in their cars. You were saying you want to see if the list is put in the police cars, and I'm saying right now we can't put the list on a computer in the police car unless we gave them another laptop that has Excel.
You can't give them a file?
Their server's secure, right? Right?
we have a secure server so someone could not hack
I
our
would
files.
assume certain things couldn't
Right.
merge.
We have
Excel is not an Encode Tyler technology-based software.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
is I'm sorry, is the computer partitioned, the disk partitioned, so one side of it you could have an Excel file running, and then on the other one, that's your secure platform.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I don't think so. All they have on their laptops in their car, the ability to NCIC, and then, of course, the Tyler Technology Incident Report
SLED
program, SLED,
files.
police folders and files. There's no Microsoft.
Okay, but we could give them a hard copy, couldn't we?
Oh, correct. And I know,
we could-
I know Kaylee and probably they'll have them.
Yeah,
A hard
and they may have it in their car. I just don't know that question right now. if they
We
have it.
could do it alphabetical by street.
It's done numerically. That's what Bob has in front of him. That's every rental house in town.
Right, I know. That's what Bobby
That's what
Kaylee
that
would
is.
have. Yes.
That's my copy.
So then they have a copy then.
So they could have that in their vehicle.
Okay.
All right.
They just said that Bobby and Kaylee do.
I know they have it. I can't confirm Stokes has it, but.
Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to ask two things. The number 4, the 25, and number 5, the 10. Is that part of the 117, or is that on top of the 117? Or is that part of the 165?
The it's going to be. It's going to be part of the 117. Any type
okay.
of contact that we made, either face to face, email, or by phone, is
okay.
going to be the 117. And that was the question I had for them. How many people that have we contacted have contacted us? how many people have we posted something have called us and wanted, I just wanted that information. And at first it was like, we don't have that information available, but I'd say just start looking for me. So he got some information for me.
Okay. Any more questions?
And I appreciate you guys coming out and
Thank
riding
you.
with us, the ones that have. We look forward to everyone riding and coming out doing, see how we operate. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next item is amendments to the agenda. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Next is consideration of communications. Any consideration of communications? Seeing none. Next is presentation by citizens for agenda items. All we ask is you come to the podium and give us your name and address and the item you want to speak to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. George Glassmer, 100 Denbeck Road. I'd like to address items 5B and 10A. 5B, the code enforcement report that you guys just got. I just have to shake my head sometimes. It seems like so many of these perceived problems, you're making something that seems simple to me very hard. And I just want to say, this isn't rocket science. Let me offer this suggestion to get, and I think it's important that the code enforcement officers have a current list of the rental properties in the car. Instead of going through all these hoops with servers, why not, you've only got 3 code enforcement officers, get a tablet for each one. They're not that expensive. Load Excel on the tablet. You can put a thumb drive in the Excel and reload the updated list of all the rental properties and might as well get all the business license listings for all the current businesses that have current licenses, so the officers in the field right then can check right then. They don't have to call anybody, go on their tablet, which probably costs maybe $200-300 at the most, and guess what? You're done. It ain't rocket science, people. Let's move on. Solve problems. Now let's look at item 10A, the parking ordinance. Frankly, I can't believe that we are revisiting this yet again. The citizens of this town had ample notice. They had more than ample opportunity to come in here and air all their concerns about this. I believe the meeting went past midnight. The mayor was very gracious about giving everyone all the time they needed. All council was here. You guys heard all the concerns. You voted. This item came up again and again at the last meeting, okay? The vote has been taken. The item is dispensed with. Move on. Quit wasting our time with this. I suspect that Mr. Walker may have put this on to conveniently coincide with his projected upcoming mayoral campaign, but guess what? I'm not concerned about politics in here. I'm concerned about you guys getting something done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Lindley Hummel. I live at 1 and 12 London Pride Road. And I want y'all to just take a look at who's here. They came, they fought, they were not listened to, and they're not showing up because they're wasting their time. So with that, 2019.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Next item is...
We talked to him, and after about 5 minutes, he came back and said, yeah, well, these people are renters, so they can't park in the grass anyway. So I said, oh, okay, well, check that one off. You know, they're in violation of that house. And again, started out 8 o'clock in the morning. Will you stop squiggling that, please? We started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then we went to the next house and with Director Witt, and we did a little investigating of the sewer situation. And after about a good 20, 30 minutes of doing that, we saw another house that had a car in their driveway. And of course, we were going to stop at that one, but we didn't get a chance to do that because Director Witt called us about another house that had a sewer situation. To make a long story short, I was with this code enforcement officer from about 8 o'clock in the morning till around 11 o'clock. And from that list he had of things he had to follow up on, he never got a chance to hit any of those 5 things. He spent most of the morning chasing down parking ordinances, any emergency calls that he may have had, any kind of, calls from a Director Witt or anybody else who might need something. But the bottom line is he didn't get a chance to go to any of those houses that he had on his list to follow up on. Now, I say this to say that if he had 282 houses like you have on that last report we got, that he'd identified that there were 282 violations, and out of the 282 violations, 165 were posted, and I believe it said it was 117 that were followed up on face-to-face, we'll never get to the end of that. And by August, or by July 17th, I believe the date is. I'm afraid that we've tasked the police department to do a lot, to put a burden on them. Not a burden on them, but we put a lot of pressure on them to get a large number of contacts accomplished in a small amount of time, which means to me is that I think the only logical thing to do is extend that education period out to at least the end of the year. And that's the additional 6 months that I'm talking about here. Extending this education period out will give folks, first of all, give folks a chance to adapt to the ordinance and give our police officers a chance to educate them, make contacts, personal contacts if it's necessary, to educate all 280 some odd people that they've identified as of today, to give them an opportunity to come in compliance with this new ordinance. I feel if we don't give them that opportunity, what's going to happen is on August 1st, when we start issuing citations or abatement notices and tickets and stuff for the people that did not comply, you're going to have another packed house here, and people are going to be upset and say, why am I getting a $1,000 ticket, a $1,000 plus ticket for something that I've been doing for the last 30 years? And of course, that's our new ordinance, that's our new law. We need to give people an ample opportunity to abide by that new ordinance. So that's the reason for the 6 months change, to additionally give more folks more time to get the personal contacts from our police department and to accommodate them and making whatever changes they need to make.
I've heard the same comment, that we're not giving them enough time for whatever, the expense, figuring out how to do it, figuring out if it can be done. I've heard the same thing. It could be negativity about the ordinance, but it may not be. And in some cases, I think it's a sincere complaint that they need a few extra months. If you think a year's too much, let's negotiate. Let's come up with something a little better than 6 months. That's what I've heard. That's why I seconded the motion.
Anybody else want to?
No.
Well, I rode with the code enforcement officer from 10 o'clock until approximately 3:45. We covered 35 homes. We went to a robbery scene. Of course, it was a false alarm, and the people in the business were very impressed that code enforcement officer, who's a police officer first, got there as they were telling the dispatcher that they had made a mistake. Somebody had set it off accidentally, and said, Irmo Police is here already. You guys are fast. And right before when I was being taken back to my home, we had an incident where a car was in the wrong lane because he was supposed to turn, and he went straight across and almost hit us and almost forced a car in a ditch. So we had to pull him over and find out if, number one, he was intoxicated, number two, he was on the national wanted list, and then finally advised him what he had done wrong. And he was from Florida. He was following his Google map to a service station that only his company would allow them to use. And he didn't realize, because the lane's not marked at Royal Tower and Woodrow, that the left lane is a turn lane only. There's no arrow on the pavement. There's no arrow up on the railroad crossing sign on either side of the road. So if you don't know, of course, common sense would enter into there. If this lane is headed straight for that lane, they must not be straight through lanes, because he can't be in two places at one time. But we covered 35 properties, and most of them someone was home. There were several that they weren't. I don't think that we need to wait another 6 months. This started in June of last year. And I think everybody and his brother has heard about it or read about it or on the TV has seen it that has anything in the way of not liking it or being affected by it. So I don't see why we need to postpone it any more than we've already postponed it. It's just like, it's not going to change how long it's going to take. And who knows what's going to happen in 2019. We might not even be here physically, any of us.
I plan to be.
Well, you know, Noah planned to take a vacation. He ended up taking a sea voyage.
I do believe, as Councilman Waite says, we've had this thing last June, and then we passed it in January, and most of the people were at that meeting that were concerned about it or upset about it or not approving of it. So they do know about it. We've also been knocking on doors, and I think 117 so far, that already know the date is August the 1st. Changing it, I think, would cause a lot of confusion. I had been asked by people, I had somebody come to my shop yesterday with a drawing of their yard. Of course, I know where it is because I go right down the road, asking if this is where he can put it. And I said, yeah, basically, that's fine. He said, okay. I've had 3 or 4 people tell my wife the same thing. They thought they had to do concrete. Some of them thought they had 10 days. And when they found out they didn't have to do concrete and had till August 1st, they were like, oh, okay, fine, we'll do it. I know Bob has told me a lot of people he's talked to, there's not been a big disagreement as to where it goes and all that kind of stuff. 2 things that I do want to address, we just got through, and I had talked to Chief and Bob a couple times about about this notification process. I think Bob had mentioned that he had said that he wanted all of them notified by March 15th, which might be a little bit tough, but and I think the chief just responded to you that by April. So I do believe they'll get notified. I do believe the majority of people do know about it. I've had a lot of people ask me about it, and a lot of people that don't live in town talk about it. So I know the word's out there to a lot of places around. I think it's, delaying it's not going to help anything. The same people that don't want to do it are still not going to want to do it. The rest of them are probably going to have it complied with by then. But that's just my 2 cents. I think it would cause more confusion than benefit. Any more discussion?
It's not a delay of the ordinance, it's just an education period extension. We already voted on the ordinance. It's law. All I'm saying is that we want to give the people as much education time. And it's plus, what's the harm? I mean, you got 287 houses you've identified already, and only half of them been contacted. Out of 287 been contacted. Let the education period reach, extend until the end of the year before you actually start issuing $1,087 tickets. That's all I'm saying. Now, if the town is in the mode of making money, yeah, let's start it. Let's start in August. Let's start in April. Let's go ahead and start writing tickets in April. But I know that's not what we want. I mean, we want these people to comply. So that's why I'm saying extend it out till end of the year. That way we know we've given everybody as much ample opportunity to comply and to understand that they are in violation, understand that their guests may be in violation, and understand what they can do. Plus, and understand that the rental properties that they have identified, that out of that potentially 280 something, 82 houses, the rental properties can't do it at all, even when, even if they do want to put a pad down, they can't because they have a rental home. So that's, again, there's a lot of work that we've asked these officers to do, and on top of that, to make sure if we ever get robbed, that we can stay on top of that too. It's not like, they're not just riding around looking for people parked in the grass. They're doing other stuff. And because that officer that I was with didn't get a chance to go to the list he had prepared that morning to go and execute because he was doing other things and got sidetracked by, Director Witt calling him for something and, people responding to 911 calls. I just know that we've asked him to do a lot and to get it done in a short amount of time. And God forbid, like I said, if we can't have our citizens aware and give them enough time to comply, unfortunately, when people start getting these tickets, or if they do get these tickets, they're going to come in here and start complaining. I just want us to be prepared for that. That's all.
Well, when we passed the ordinance, we could have gave a 3-month, we could have gave a 30-day, we could have gave a 2-month, 90-day or something, but we gave 6 months, which I think was ample time, and council passed that, and that is part of the ordinance as well.
Well, we gave it 6 months, but not knowing what the burden we're going to put on the police department to execute it in that time.
Well, I think I was pretty sure of what the burden was because I had asked Bob multiple times. They rode around and spotted 150, 180 homes within a couple-week period, and that was riding during the day. So I think we're going to cause a lot of confusion.
Mr. Pouliot just pointed out that the best time to do this is not during the day, but in the evening and then on the weekends. So we have to change the officers' hours now. Is this going to involve overtime, Chief, for us to do this, to have officers work on the off hours?
Not if we change it from 9 to 11.
Okay, you're just going to change their hours in that way? Okay.
And you wouldn't have to do that all the time, but just maybe once.
Or he could change one officer, leave the other one at 9 to 9.
And I've spoken, go ahead.
I don't know if changing the hours wouldn't be a problem as much. I just don't know how much feedback we're gonna get back from a citizen on us knocking on the door at 10:30 at night.
Well,
But, we will.
I don't think he was saying knock on the door. I think he was saying just ride by and spot him at the middle of the night.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what.
Well, we can get our patrol guys to do a lot of that for us.
Yeah.
We don't have to change hours. The code enforcement guys, they can contact up to 9 o'clock at night. Personally, my opinion, I don't want cops knock on my door at 9 o'clock at night.
Right, I wouldn't,
Tell
yeah.
them about an ordinance that had.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of calls, but it's fine. I think we can get patrol guys out there trying to identify, and then from there, off the identification list, find out if what we've already done from there. We'll work on it.
Yeah. Any more discussion? Let me find my sheet. All in favor then of ordinance 1803, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next is the approval to upgrade the S, C, E, and G lights on Lake Mary Boulevard. Bob gave us a new sheet on that in regards to the breakdown. Is there an approval for that? Or is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it because I've got some questions.
Okay. And Councilman Walker?
This was a result of our town hall meeting that you looked into this?
No, this was, council brought it up about 7, 8 months ago, and some concerned citizens wanted to know why we weren't putting brighter lights out, and we had dark spots, not so much on Lake Murray Boulevard as St. Andrews Road, and mostly Woodrow Street. I just hadn't got around to looking into it, and when I finally got got SE&G to give me some prices. It took them a couple months. And then I had another long meeting with them today, so.
Okay, this is the street lights that are on Woodrow you're talking about, right?
Woodrow, Lake Murray, and St. Andrews, 62.
Okay, and these are the town-owned street lights?
And that's correct.
Okay, what about the street lights on Royal Tower and?
Not residential lights. Those are paid for by the residents.
Right, I mean, that's what the citizens were asking about at the town hall meeting, was the residential lights.
This was way before the town hall meeting.
I know, but I'm saying those,
Subject altogether.
what about those lights in the residential areas? Because they were asking about those lights.
Correct, and they're not controlled by the town. The citizens can get SE&G Mid-Carolina. They can ask them if they want to increase the wattage or put in an LED light there, but they would have to get an increase in their charge, I'm sure, if they'll even get them replaced. I don't know that. I can check into that.
Okay, I'm ready to vote.
And if they want more, from my understanding, they got to get permission from somebody's property, put it on there, and then they all got to agree to
They all got to agree to pay that.
pay for whatever else additional. What was you want to say?
I just have a question about the monthly bill's going to go up for them replacing bulbs.
Replacing the fixtures that hold the
Oh,
bulb.
they're going to replace the fixture on the top of the pole.
Correct, and then the LED lights go.
And there's 62 they're going to upgrade.
Correct.
And the bill's going to go up because that's going to pay for what they're putting in, correct? Are we going to be billed for that separately?
If you read my note and the discussion I had with them today was, yes, it does go up, but it never comes down.
Oh, SE&G, it never does.
Yeah, that
Each
note-
fixture and bulb will cost $948 plus labor, and that's per fixture.
That's the price they gave me, that's correct.
And we already own those fixtures, correct?
We're still paying for them from the last time that they put them in. You know, some of them are 25, 30 years old, but we pay every month for the fixtures, the lights. It's a maintenance agreement, I guess you'd call it, plus the electricity.
So when will they be ours?
Never,
Never.
That's the
Right.
point.
never.
So we're going to pay, it's kind of like the Westinghouse fiasco that we're having
Yeah.
SE&G's having problems with. We keep paying and we're told we have to, and it's recently been revealed through the crystal ball of our state government that the Public Service Commission cannot legislate increases. And they've been charging us increased rates, and it wasn't even legal when it was done because we weren't getting what we were paying for. And now that Westinghouse has gone belly up and their parent company is a foreign power company, they're not stepping in and taking the heat. And it all started when Westinghouse was told to buy a company in Chicago, Illinois, that had a $3.2 billion incorrect figure because their books had been cooked. And it was found out about a year after they did it. So Westinghouse declared bankruptcy, SCANA got burnt, and the citizens are going to pay for it. I just don't understand why we have to pay these exorbitant prices, and they're ours, and they're going to be ours 15 years from now or 20 years from now, but we're still going to be paying the higher rate, and the bulb's supposed to produce more light but at a lower cost.
You got it. Well, just so you know, I'm not really promoting this.
No, I know you're not, but I mean I just want to be
And
sure
they're not really ever ours.
no.
They're theirs, and they can just whatever.
That's why I want to make this
But I think
public knowledge, because a lot of people in my subdivision thought that Mid-Carolina, out of the goodness of their heart, put those light fixtures all through our subdivision and were providing all this wonderful things for us until the bulb goes out, and then you got to call them. But they do come out and they replace it. And when the truth, I can't remember, it was Truth in Lending Law that also had a subsidiary thing that SCE&G had to now put down on your bill, itemize how much was going for their franchise fee and how much was this and that and the other. Now Mid-Carolina has on their bills that you're paying $3.45 a month for that light in your front yard, along with all your neighbors within, I think, 4 houses from each one of them. So they're gonna get you one way or another.
But I think the real reason for this is that the people wanted to know about the lights on their subdivisions, Woodrow, Royal Tower, whatever, Charing Cross. They were asking why are there some dark areas in its neighborhoods, and if we're going to spend that kind of money, well, I understand that, but if we're going to spend that kind of, if you're asking us if we would consider spending that kind of money here, we should do some further research and find out about the neighborhoods' lights and find out what we can do to help improve their lighting situation. So I think we need to just hold off on this, but let's vote on it and let's.
Well, I wanted
look
to
at
ask
it.
a couple of things. This one sentence in the second paragraph says, SE&G wants to reiterate that the payment covers all maintenance, replacement, and future upgrades. Is that the same as the old agreement?
It is, I went on
So-
to say it here, because they will replace our bulbs and fixtures once they get to the point they can no longer get.
So if we don't do anything, they're gonna future upgrade them at some point anyway, because they've already agreed to do that with the $1,800.
They said they probably would get
Do
around to
trick.
replacing all of them LED in the next 20 years. So I mean, if we could wait, they're gonna get around to it. They're gonna not be able to replace these out there now. You know, they have trouble now replacing some of
Right.
them. They're just not available anymore.
And from what I understand about the neighborhoods, MC or Mid Carolina and SE, when those neighborhoods are built, the lights are put in there.
Correct.
And they put in there whatever the builder or whoever, somebody decides what number, and that's what they put in there. If you want more, then it's up to the citizen to contact them and say, I want one in my front yard, and then everybody's gotta pay or they gotta pay, the monthly bill.
Trim the trees.
One of the problems is too is some of them are dark because if you look at some of them, there's one on Old Well Road, that there's a tree about as big around as, I don't say this room, and the light's in the middle of it, but you can't make the homeowner cut the tree. And they grew it there because they didn't want the light there and they didn't want it shining in their bedroom, so they grew a tree. That's part of the problem too is, you know, they can't go on somebody's property and trim the tree back, and some of them people, the lights go out and they won't call. They don't want another one in there. That's, some of them, probably not a lot of the issues, but that's a few of them. Any more discussion on
In
this?
view of their current financial situation, I don't think we ought to do this.
Amen.
And it could be that if they do get bought out or something, somebody else might come up with a better plan. I don't know. Who knows? Probably not, but. Any more discussion? All in favor then of the approval to upgrade the lights on Lake Murray, St. Andrews, and Woodrow, do so with show of hands. Oop. All opposed?
Okay.
Thank you for doing this further research.
Well, I've been a little remiss in not getting it done earlier.
That's, I appreciate it.
And the next is the approval of the policy for implementing, educating about the yard parking. This is the thing that Bob sent out.
Yeah,
When was it, January or something?
January 7th.
Yeah, and I just felt like we need to make sure we were all on the same wavelength. I don't have that thing here, but is there, oh, that's right, I got it on my computer.
It's on the screen.
Oh,
It's
good.
on email.
Right there in front of
Is there approval for this?
Yeah, yeah. This
I mean, is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Of the email?
Well, whatever that thing
Okay,
Bob sent out
okay.
was, which kind of broke it down as to what
Yeah.
him and the chief had all got together and decided, or he did or something. But I just want to make sure we were all,
Okay.
I know we didn't get any responses back, but I told Bob we need to make sure everybody's in agreement with that. Is there a second?
I second it.
Oh, all right. Any discussion? I think we may be all aware now that
Yeah.
we've had the code enforcement thing, so. But is everybody fine with it? We need to,
You got specifically Sergeant Dale in here. I mean, to just be more generalized. And you also got number 3, you got Sergeant Dale's name in here. Not that Sergeant Dale's going anywhere, but should he just be contact somebody else, code enforcement, or contact police department or something?
well, I think if I understood Bob right, it was, say the police officer goes out there and there's a disagreement or misunderstanding as to where they can put it, then they can contact Sergeant Dale, since he's over code enforcement. He can talk to them, and if that's not, that
Well-
didn't resolve it, then it would come to Bob.
I think what Councilman Walker is saying is it should say probably the sergeant of code
Oh.
enforcement and be more generalized. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. So, oh, Renee, you got that? Okay. Any other?
No, nothing, except I would leave that up to the chief.
I got a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Say October 1, 2018, somebody moves to town, they're violating this policy. How long do they have to fix, is it 15 days?
I would-
10 days?
The ordinance.
July 1, 2018, we're gonna start writing abatement notices for this?
No,
We're gonna give them 30 days, or is it 10?
No, 10 days.
30.
because this is a brand new one, we're gonna give them as many as 30 days. You might start right on July 1st, you might finish right on July 15th, but they still have until August 1st. Somebody moves in August 1st, it's on the books, there's no more grace period.
Okay.
No more education, now it's a law, and they have 10 days once they get their abatement notice.
So just hypothetically speaking, if 282 people don't fix everything by July 1, we need to go out and make contact with 282 people and write abatement notices. Okay.
Well, you'd start on July 1st, but you may not get through, but. And I think the way Bob, because when I had told somebody, I think I figured July the 18th since we did it, January the 18th. But I think Bob said that would give them more time at the last,
Chief,
give y'all
I'm
more
sure
time, too.
everybody up here will volunteer to help you.
Well, I've told about 5 people, so.
No, we got to,
I don't think it's gonna be 282, I think a lot of people will comply.
oh, yeah, me too.
And then number 7 here says, beginning August 1st, code enforcement will issue tickets to properties.
Still,
And that's the argument you just had with Ms. Condon. Well, not argument, that's a comment Ms. Condon just made. You can write the tickets to the car,
Yeah.
to the homeowner, or what? And you just says here, properties. So what are you gonna do? If you write a ticket to my house, because I got somebody,
To the driver of the car who's illegally parked,
so it's,
it's a parking violation,
it's to the automobile. You're writing a ticket to the automobile.
the owner of the automobile, who drove
Okay.
up there.
The operator.
Okay, so why does it say properties here?
Well,
It's the operator of the automobile.
So that has to be amended too.
Yeah, I mean, so
So change that to
Operator of the automobile.
operator of,
The offending automobile. There you go.
tickets issued to the automobile. Is that right?
it's a vehicle slash owner.
Okay, now, if the owner is a bank, because I got it financed, you're gonna issue a bank a ticket?
no,
I'm asking a serious
it's
question.
the owner. Just
It's
the-
the
You are
registered.
technically the owner according to the law, Mr. Walker.
The vehicle operator, if you don't ticket
Correct.
your kid's riding down the road in your car and speeding, mom and dad don't get the speeding ticket, the kid gets the speeding.
It's the operator.
It's the operator.
Okay, so you're gonna write a ticket to the person that's in control of that car at the time?
The parker.
To the owner, or to the person in control of it, or to the property? Which one?
To the operator.
The operator.
So the person driving that car at this time? Okay, so my van, I park it on the grass at my neighbor's house, and, my son happened to park it there.
Yes,
You're gonna find my son and write him a ticket for $1,087?
Your son-
Because he's parking my van on my neighbor's grass?
Yeah.
I'm being very clear about this, because I don't want anybody to come back to me and say, well, Councilman Walker, it was my truck. Why did they write my neighbor, why did they write my nephew a $1,087 ticket? And he was just there temporarily.
well, first of all, they'd be writing them an abatement notice, correct?
No, on August 1st, you're writing tickets.
Right.
Yeah, you get 10 days to fix the situation.
Well,
It
but he's
says here,
saying on
beginning
August 1st.
enforcement will be issuing tickets. It doesn't say anything about abatement notices.
That's for the people that have been abated in July.
Okay.
If they started July 1, if they haven't gotten fixed by August 1, we can start issuing citations.
But come August 1, then you just give them a 10-day abatement,
If
and
they're
then,
brand new and
Yeah.
have not been through the.
right. Does that need to say vehicle operator and/or owner or something?
Yeah, probably.
And does it need to say vehicle operator and/or owner and/or property owner?
No.
Or is that,
No.
okay. So just vehicle operator and/or owner.
That's correct, because I could see a situation where Barry's son is in violation in the car that's titled in Barry's name, but that his son is driving, and then we have a difficulty, it's at Barry's house, so who do I ticket when I show up and they both go, not my fault, I didn't do it, you know?
Change that then, Renee, to and/or.
Then he'd also have a problem with the HOA.
Well, that's true too.
Any more changes? All in favor then of it as amended with the Sergeant Dale change and the properties to vehicle operator and/or something and/or owner? Is that the two changes?
Owner of the car,
Vehicle operator and/or owner.
of the automobile.
Of the automobile, yes.
Or vehicle owner?
Not the owner.
Vehicle covers it.
Mm-hmm.
Vehicle operator and/or owner.
Yeah.
Okay, but
That
I'm asking
clear, Eric?
owner of what? Owner of the property or owner
Vehicle.
Vehicle.
of the vehicle? Okay. They want you to say that, so.
Does it need to say vehicle owner,
Okay.
vehicle owner and/or operator? Does that be clear? Vehicle owner and/or operator, hopefully. All righty. All in favor then of that policy, approval of that policy with the amendments, do so with show of hand. Next is the appointment to the Planning Commission staff, and I think we saw in the thing where there were two names turned in to us. Also, the seat that, the term that's expiring, I think that gentleman has also, didn't you say he wanted to?
Yes.
He wanted to
So,
read
so
Yes.
there's three names.
But I need to point out, I sent 3 emails to Mr. Wadlington, he's never responded, that he was still interested.
Oh, I thought you said in here he was.
He said he was when he sent me his.
Oh,
thing,
but you haven't heard recently.
No, last week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I tried to call him too, and I didn't hear back, but when I saw your administrator, I figured he'd contacted you.
Well, because we had kept his talent book thing on file, and he was interested when he submitted.
Oh, okay, so we don't know.
He hasn't responded. So I don't know, he's still interested,
And we do know
so you know.
so that kind of gives us two. I'll let anybody make a recommendation, and it doesn't need a second. We just vote on each one until somebody gets a majority.
In view of Mr. Looney's health, I would hate to slap him in the face and take this away from him in the condition he's in. And I hope we all realize the condition he's in. Anyway,
Well, okay.
I just think we should give him the extra time.
Well, since you brought that up, I'll just have to ask, but is he well enough to serve?
He was at the meeting Monday night, right,
Okay.
Bob? That's what I asked Bob.
So, anybody wants to make a recommendation?
I recommend Mr. Linney.
It's an honorable thing.
Any others?
I recommend the other guy.
And the other guy?
I don't have his name in front of me. Wasn't it Wadlington?
It was in an email last week.
David McFarland is the other guy.
Yeah, right. Hold on a second.
We have one vacancy or two?
One.
Mr. David McFarland and Mr. Ed Waddington.
Mr. Waddington did not respond to Bob's 3 emails.
Yeah, but I mean, he wanted to do it. I mean, put his name in the hat. If you don't get any votes, you don't get any votes. That's what you got this talent pool for, right? People want to.
There's nothing wrong with
Okay.
appointing him, but if he still doesn't respond, then there could be something and might have to appoint somebody else if he can't do it.
Okay.
And how many times you contacted them? You said 3? And I called them myself and I didn't get a response, so I don't know.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't know if he's got busy or, I don't know. I would think if he wanted to serve, he would contact us and let us know, but
I would
don't know
think,
that, but
I hope he will.
I don't
in
know.
the future.
We got 3 names. What was that other guy's name? David, you said?
McFarland.
The first one was Don Looney, all in favor of Don, and you can vote for multiple people. You don't have to vote for just one. But all in favor of Don Looney. Ed Waddlington. And David McFarland. All righty. Don Looney got 5, so he will be reappointed.
Poor thing.
The next is the approval to schedule a town hall meeting to discuss 911 services. We can do an approval, and then I've left, I've talked to, what's his name out there, David. He's checking his schedule, and Bob sent him some dates too, but we haven't got a firm one yet. And we can do that around, if we approve it, then Bob can set up the date whenever, probably on a Thursday or something like that, maybe, because the court's on Wednesday.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
So
I know that, I'm sorry.
You want to make an approval or make a
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
We've heard from Nikki Rogers and David several times in the past, but the public hasn't.
Right.
And I think this is a very good idea. I think they deserve to ask questions and find out, and I think a town hall meeting is a good thing.
Is there any dates that y'all know of or times that aren't good? Say after 6 or after 6:30? We got to be cognizant of them too, because they get off, and this is kind of after hours for them.
If you made it after 6, I don't see a problem with me being there.
And we got something here in the building Tuesday normally, and something Wednesday. So, and Mondays is
And
only
something Thursday, right?
well this Thursday.
This Thursday.
But I think I told the guy anytime next week or the week after, or we had to wait till the 1st of March or
Next week is not good for me.
April.
Next week I'm out of town.
You're out of town,
Yep.
so not next week.
Right.
He's going to see a grandbaby.
So you got that, Bob? Not next week. What about you? Any day or any evening better or worse?
Did we vote on this, doing this or not?
No.
Well,
You're discussing dates, so did we say we're gonna do this?
yeah, but Bob just needs an idea before, so when we approve it, he kind of knows not to set it up when somebody isn't going to be here.
We didn't approve if we're gonna do it or not yet. So we're gonna approve that we did it and then figure out a date or what?
No, because once we approve it, then we're moving on. So
Okay,
I'm just asking y'all to give Bob some headway. Is Thursday's good for everybody?
Fine for me.
For you?
it's not a matter of Thursday's good, is it good for the people who we're asking to be there?
Well, he's checking
we
his
don't know
schedule, but he kind of felt like it would be,
To
but
have it here Thursday would be good, right?
or a Monday if we had to.
Well, we have planning commission on,
But that's the only Monday we got it.
That's the first Monday, that's the only Monday meeting we have, and then Okerstruts are Tuesday between council meetings.
okay.
And court's Wednesday.
For April, we got Tuesday and Wednesday for a lot of jury trials.
So Monday or Thursday.
Monday or Thursday, whatever.
Next Thursday, is that what we're looking
No,
No,
he's out of town.
at? The Thursday after the 27th?
that'd be fine.
Or the Monday.
'Cause I don't know what Mr. Eager's schedule is.
Yep.
It's a matter of when
Yep.
we want him to come, and we'll see what they can.
Jury trials are actually the last week of this month, so pretty
Starts
pleased.
the last
Yeah, pretty please not the last week of this month, because we don't have any way of knowing how long those will last.
All right.
Are we talking about Thursday, the 22nd?
22nd, I'll ask.
Okay.
7 o'clock, 6:30, 6.
6 o'clock, I think.
And remember, you got that Monday too, so don't forget that one.
Yeah, the Monday of the last week also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All righty. All in favor then of to schedule a meeting with 911, do so with show of hands. Next is presentation by citizens. Anyone who'd like to address council on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'm David Stewart, 101 Glossop Circle. I appreciate the opportunity that some of us had last month to appear at the town hall and to listen to some of the issues that citizens had brought up to wanted to be discussed. And I thank the 3 council members who were here who had the foresight to go ahead and enter into the agenda for tonight a discussion regarding Elmer Danko and the award that I had proposed at a meeting last year following his untimely death on May 8th of last year. I believe, from what I can ascertain, this is a fairly non-controversial issue, and therefore I hope that there will be as little discussion, if there is any, about the merits of this idea. My proposal at the meeting was that in recognition of Mr. Danko's many, many years of service to a particular subdivision, and then widening the influence of his participation in things for the town, that there would be a support or enough support from the town to undertake a resolution to recognize a citizen of the town enough that we could present an award, a volunteer award to that particular individual. And because there would not be any expense to the town other than just formulating the criteria and asking for participation from various organizations, whether they be neighborhood associations, whether they be civic organizations, whether they be churches, whether they be schools, or other individuals who might want to contribute their input on who would be a good person to select for this particular award. And for those of the individuals here tonight, or for anyone else who might be interested, Mr. Danko was a resident of the Coatsworth subdivision. He did a lot of work for the subdivision and for the town. He was involved in voter fora, for which Mr. Waits might be familiar back in the earlier days, for those who were running for council and for mayor. He was on a first-name basis with many of the public servants in both counties, Richland and Lexington, when it come to doing infrastructure work, not just in Coatsworth, but in the whole town. And I think it would be appropriate if the town were to undertake an effort to recognize the service of an individual in the manner in which Mr. Danko served. So I am ready to contribute my $100 that I suggested that I would do last year. And I know that there are other individuals who would like to participate in that effort as well. I would like to suggest that the council support a resolution that by the 8th of May this year, that we could formulate a criteria and a method for helping to select a candidate that we could recognize in this manner. I'd be willing to serve in any capacity, to offer any suggestions that may contribute to this effort. And I would further ask that the town consider sponsoring and supporting a resolution by the date of Elmer's birthday, which would be November 23rd, which this year is the day after Thanksgiving. I think that time would be a good, appropriate time to make the presentation. So that if the council wants to consult further with some ideas I might have, I'd be glad to share them with you. Perhaps by the end of summer, or maybe by September 1st, we could set a deadline and have an opportunity to examine those who may have been selected or nominated for the award. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer or any further discussion. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Wade Deloach, 156 Finsbury Road. I want to start off by thanking council for letting us use the council chambers for the neighborhood watch. Appreciate that. Got a lot of positive feedback. The other thing I want to talk about, Easter coming up. I had a memorial made at Christmas time that's signed by a lot of people here in town, and I'd like to display it in the park for 2 weeks, so a week before and after Easter. I'll put it up, take it down. It'll be no expense to the town at all. Another thing, I want to talk about usage of the park, if I could. I had plans through the Neighborhood Watch program to promote unity with the Irmo, and one of the things I was wanting to do is build rain barrels and present some 55-gallon trash cans out there at the park, and I was going to have the community maybe paint some stuff on the trash cans, you know, promoting environmental friendly, keeping up the neighborhood. And I didn't know if we could look into maybe developing an area in the park to do such projects. A small work area where we can go and, you know, have drill and water and access to stuff, you know, to make different little project things like that and have the community out there. And again, I'd like to thank the council for letting us use the chambers for the meeting.
Thank you. And you can probably get with Bob sometime and go over some of that stuff with him, and then he can kind of. Anyone else? Seeing none. Next is the discussion on the Elmer Danko Memorial Award, and Councilman Walker.
I thought we had a resolution when he passed. Didn't we do that? Didn't we do a resolution?
No.
You don't think we did one?
Memorial, the chair set up for him in honor of him, but I don't recall if we did a resolution.
I don't.
We'll check.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
I think we did something.
We did something.
Mark and Lori.
I don't know
Yeah,
why.
They did the chair.
we did the
That.
chair.
Correct.
And we had his wife.
I thought we had a resolution, though. We said it was Elmer Danko Day or something.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't recall.
Well, I mean, if we didn't do one, then I think we should have a resolution. At least. That's a no-brainer. As far as this whole criteria for award, I think Mr. Stewart, if you work on that and come up with a criteria, we'll certainly. I'd like to see us work on that or adopt it, but I'm not sure exactly if we can actually award money from the town coffers. But if you're saying it's self-funded, I don't see what the problem would be. I mean, y'all help me out.
I think we have donations,
Yeah.
at least 3 that I know of, that would handle for 3 years. The only problem is, who's gonna pick this person? Do we need to have a committee of 2 or 3, or
Well, that's what I'm saying, Mr. Stewart.
be the staff?
Mr. Stewart's gonna come up with the criteria. I mean, that's what he said.
Okay, okay.
Well, let me make sure I got this straight. We're not giving Elmer an award, we're giving somebody an award in the name of Elmer.
In the name of
memory.
Elmer.
Right, that's what the resolution is gonna be.
Yeah, and then, yeah, I mean, I think it had to have some kind of criteria as to who. If we're not got nothing to do with it as far as awarding it, then I don't know that, that's the part I'm trying to figure out. Because if we try to do it as a political thing, if we put it on them, then it's kind of, you'd almost have to have a committee. We could all appoint somebody to that committee, but, or we could just let the citizens form their own committee and they do it themselves, and then we're not involved and they give it to whomever they want to give it to. I'm not sure which way, but.
He was so devoted to town council that when he was not here, we called to see where he was.
That's right.
And I think, and I don't want to give Bob and Renee any more to do than they already have, but it's going to have to be somebody that knows who's out there and who's taking an interest in us and keeping us on the straight and narrow. And Elmer was very influential in a lot of ways. Just looking out there and seeing him, a lot of us behaved better, I think. He knew what we were supposed to be doing and what we ought to be doing, and it was important. So
Well, one thing we could do is we could all submit a name, each person individually, and then let those 5 people start it. But if they want to add some more people to it, then it would be.
And let Bob and Renee pick. I think we ought to let staff.
I don't know about. I would just let the group pick. But then again,
well,
The town can endorse what this committee does.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole purpose, is to keep Elmer here, so to speak, and salute people that are trying to make things better, which he did.
But when you say the town can endorse, you mean we vote on it?
No, we endorse this.
Oh, the
resolution.
award.
The award, and
Okay.
the presentation can be here in the council chambers at one of the council meetings.
Well, on the 23rd, that's his birthday.
Yeah, but I mean,
We could each submit a name, I guess.
Yeah, and then they could add some more to it too if they wanted more people. And then they could
and I would recommend that David chair this.
submit one name or 2
Because he
names.
dealt with Elmer.
Well, we're not going to vote on it. We don't care if they submit.
No.
That'd be up to them to
Yeah,
decide which
true.
one after all the applicants. Okay.
You're willing, David?
Yes.
Good.
Do you have something, Chief?
I was just saying, the lead police car and the open strut parade has an empty front seat. Whoever y'all nominated every year, we own the front.
Isn't that cool?
Front passenger seat of the police car, and y'all can have a magnet, every year that says.
Elmer Danko Award.
Oh, yeah, good idea.
Waving at the crowd, I said, we put them in the back seat, wherever y'all.
No, don't put them in the back seat. They can't get out.
Put them in the back seat with their hands handcuffed.
Police cars and parade.
I love it. I love it.
I don't know about the back seat. That would look kind of.
I love it. Yep.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, we need to do it by September 15th then, before they.
Well, if you do it in the car, they're not going to be able to see good. If you do it in one of those golf carts, then they can be seen good.
Yeah, there you go.
They might look like they got locked up for breaking in line or something. But that's, they can ride at the front, yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest that what we've heard offered would be pleasing to us, but I'm not sure Elmer would have pursued it. He was such a low-key person, he didn't want to draw attention to himself. So
That's true.
that's just all I wanted to say. But I think that's a great idea for somebody who got an award.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
Elmer being
Well, don't tell him. Okay. That's
So
a
you
good
kind of
idea.
know what you're going to do, and then I guess just by the next meeting, we can give Bob a name
Yeah.
for the next couple of days or whatever,
Yeah.
and then give them to David, and then what else? Any other discussion? Next is a personnel matter, executive session for a personnel matter. Is there a motion for an executive session for a personnel matter?
I make a motion.
And all in favor then?
Is there any more detail on this personal matter? Is this like a personal matter with police, or what agency is this with?
Well, we can't really, I don't think, I'm not sure, but we can't really say a whole lot.
What's that?
I know. Do you want?
Is this a personal matter with an agency or what?
Do you want Bob in, or Bob and Eric and us and council? Okay. All in favor then of the executive session, do so with show of hands. All opposed? All right, we'll go in and we will not take any votes, and we will be back out.